if the world could stand against, though I'm my only rival. I chose to force my growth to learn how to be able. Maybe a shaky past, today I'm called stable. I'm standing taller cause I found the right angles. You see my face is bright, I'm shining like a star. With ambitions for moon, I end up on Mars. From the gutter, I ain't supposed to be here. 2.0 came to partner now, and I can see clear, I'm here.
Hey, yo, welcome everyone. This is Adulting 2.0. My name is Neftali, and I have with me Amanda Peterson. And we are going to, okay, get it, Amanda. Go, Amanda. Go, Amanda.
Why we get on here together?
I have no idea. I just love to see it. I love to see it. So we are going to be talking about culture and systemic oppression. Amanda will be teaching this course. I will be coming in with the questions. If you are tuning in and you are a Adulting 2.0 participant, you'll be following along with the questions to answer that will be on the survey. So make sure you take notes, you pay attention with what's going on. And as always, the secret phrase will be released at some point in the video. So stay tuned. And Amanda, it's all you, girl. I'll come in with a question or so, but this is all you, girl. You can share your screen and let us have it.
All right, take it away. Take it away. Ooh, child. What happened? Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
All right, fam. Welcome today. Thank you for joining me for my lesson. It's a topic I really enjoy speaking about. And I'll let you know for just a second why. So for over a decade now, I have been a diversity, equity, inclusion, access, justice, and belonging educator. I have been consulting for years in multiple different environments. And so I've gotten the pleasure of creating quite a bit of curriculum surrounding this topic. And if you ask me, I love going back to the basics. I love getting people with a good, firm foundation. So please know that this course is not going to be anything profound that you probably don't already know, but it might be presented in a way that you haven't heard it said before. I typically like to put words on my slide for those of you who like to read or take notes. But then I also give you information in between that you could not get unless you were paying attention and listening to me. So there will be requirements and questions surrounding both content on the slide and what I'm saying. You're gonna have to work for these $20, honey. Okay, this is gonna be a good presentation, and we want you to know who you are. Launch Ministry is a nonprofit organization that serves young adults 18 to 29 and helps them navigate through their crisis, whatever that might look like for them. And one of the biggest pieces and one of the biggest barriers in my team in being able to serve you is when you don't know who you are, when you don't understand what you mean, and when you don't know how to navigate those pieces for the benefit of yourself. It is for that reason today we are going to be talking about those components, and I'm just going to be giving you a lot of definitives. I will give you some narratives in the midst, and then at the end we're going to ask some questions that you will need to answer in order to receive your $20. I do want to give a quick disclaimer that we acknowledge the complexity of exploring roles within majority white spaces, which are common in our work. We do not want to contribute to the heteronormativity, hypervisibility, tokening, and/or educative labor of participants who are Black and/or people of color, economically disenfranchised, disabled, or gender nonconforming. So please understand that we get it, that this is a very complex topic and that it's not going to be cookie cutter. And we are not asking you to feel like you need to answer anything cookie cutter. If any of the questions do not fit you or make you feel comfortable, please just say that in the answer and you will receive credit. The next piece is that our goal today is to decenter whiteness and acknowledge the role of white supremacy within our institution and beyond. And so you will hear what white supremacy is and how it's pervasive in our environment through some of the definitive terms I'll give you today. The first piece is we're going to talk about social identity. Now, we never use the phrase. We usually say, how do I identify? But Your identity is a social definitive. Sociology is the study of society. Social really just means society, and it's how we or society defines us. And society defines us pretty harshly. It usually defines us based on our senses, so what we can see, smell, hear, taste. That's how our judgment comes. But understand that your makeup, who you are, your purest identity is not able to be just solely measured by the physical, by the senses. You are a metaphysical being. You have multiple layers to you. You have a soul, a morality, an intellect. These things internally cannot be measured solely by the physical senses. And so when you are thinking of social identity, you need to realize that that is solely what is physically definitive. You can't only know what is physically definitive in order to be successful and navigate through whatever life throws at you, just as a memo. The next slide is talking about social grouping. So when we talk about that social identity, those social identities can be broken up into two categories: dominant or subordinate. And dominant traits tend to be what is a part of the dominant social class. So don't think of your personal individual dominant traits. As a matter of fact, if you thought of that, just think about the fact that that is actually a characteristic of white supremacy culture. White supremacy culture has us indoctrinated to mean that anything that is best, winning, dominant, in charge, leading is white. And so if you thought of that, you don't need to say anything, you don't need to engage with it. This is not to give you guilt or to give you shame, but this sort of awareness, this sort of reflection and introspection as it comes with different social groupings is very important for you to grow. So when I'm talking about dominant social groupings, go ahead, Neff, you have a question.
Oh, I wanted you to finish your thought because I think this is so great. And for me, I think I'm a dominant person and I'm not sure if I am or not. So I just wanted to like interject with the question of just like, because I am a man, I believe I'm a dominant by society standards, but because I'm like Black, Afro-Latino and queer, I find that that brings me in a subordinate. Oh my God, I can't speak. Say the word.
Subordinated.
Subordinated, thank you. Oh, girl, my ESL is showing. I took it for 3 years. I am so sorry. Like sometimes I speak 2 languages. I'm sorry. I get stuck at times. Subordinated. So I have that subcategory. So I really like trust and believe I'm a dom, honey. I think I'm a dom, but like I realize that in this conversation, I am really coming across as sub. So. And I feel like dom and sub is such another like, you know, double entendre conversation, but I'm just trying to be professional. But like, so what am I, Amanda, so by that definition, am I correct in that line of thinking of just being dom because of my gender and then being sub because of all these other areas in society? Is that correct? Or like, can you tell me right or wrong?
So yeah, I can. And it's a great question. So theoretically, individuals add a disproportionate amount of weight depending on your individual classification of identity factors. And so gender is one piece, race is another. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more. You're jumping ahead a little bit for me, so I'm not going to give too much of your answer. But I do want to say this: I do not ascribe to that theoretical framework. I do not believe that it is absolutely possible to categorize our identities into little boxes. I think that's a white supremacist perspective. We are a lot more complicated and interconnected and inseparable from our criteria. We make up a unique form of expression that really can't be described in the English language. And so there should be a forever searching of who we are, but there's this idea that we must know who we are and be able to have our social identity or our social perspective, which is another way to say that, line up with that, so we can have proof of who we are. And that is actually not healthy or the case. And so when I'm talking about dominant or subordinated, I'm literally just trying to give you some historical context on the ideologies. And so typically individuals think of their categorization of what is dominating or what can be dominant in what society views you as. So when society sees you, what traits, when they see you, do they ascribe with right, best, winning, supreme? Okay, and so do you have any of those traits? And so nephew did an excellent job of articulating as being a man. Because you're a man, society has a higher propensity of seeing you as dominant. Unfortunately, because of the weight that we'll talk about when we talk about intersectionality, because of the weight of your Blackness, and because of the weight of the weight of your non-gender conformity, like it literally means that society does not view you as a gendered man as they would see as dominant. So you do not get to decide you're dominant in that. Society gets to decide that. And you want to know how society sees you, but you do not want to define yourself by how society defines you. Because remember, they define you solely by a physical manifestation. They do not understand the metaphysical, spiritual, intellectual, moral, emotional pieces that only you can express to the world. So I
think
don't
it's
know
our favorite word of having autonomy in your identity. That I think it falls down to that. But for the first question, for those who have been tuning in, I definitely want you to take a moment before we hear more what Amanda has to say and just listing some of your social identity of what you think it is right now. Just like list it off, and then let's see how your answers progress the more we learn and get more understanding. So the first question is, what is your social identity? From just before we get into the lesson. So list that off and make sure you have that listed. Back to you, Amanda. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about subordinated, we are talking about also oppressive, more oppressed. And so what groupings, when society sees you, typically they don't make space for you. Typically they act like that's something you should be ashamed of. One of the biggest subordinated identity markers that we often do not mention is body size. Like the audacity, someone that has a larger body size wants to exist and love it. Society's identity will literally spew upon them an oppressive shaming that they love how they look and don't feel the need to beat their body up to make it look a different way. And so as Neff gave you that excellent task, please make sure you also are listing your subordinated traits. What are things that society sees you are as? Remember, these are solely physical identity markers. So the color of your skin, the size of your body, the color of your eyes, the type of your hair, the height that you have. Look at those things, and then you make a decision if you think society measures them as dominant or subordinate, and later we will let you know if that aligns with research. So then the next piece that we're going to talk about that's very important and ties into social groupings is culture. And culture is defined as the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. So your culture is the things that you're indoctrinated with and really have no choice about. These are the things that the traditions that your family makes in your home, that the things they do during certain parts of the year, your mom's attitude towards the holidays, your father's work ethic. These cultural norms, whether you have a father in the home or whether you have a mother in the home, whether you're adopted, these social cultural norms, again, everything could be added, social can be added to all of these definitions. These social cultural norms are things that are very important to recognize. For instance, I've had the pleasure at one time in my life leading a group of Black people, which is very broad. I've used quotes not because I question if they were Black. I use quotations in the terms of that is an umbrella term that I don't often feel comfortable comfortable with, but really only encapsulate a general understanding of what I'm talking about. So Black people from multiple different cultures gathered together, and I was leading them. And we decided to have what we called a cookout. And it might be considered in some cultures as a potluck, as a picnic, whatever. But we call it a cookout. And there was one person appointed to take food items from folks. And someone, a Black person in the group, suggested that we have black beans. And people are like, what? Where's the fried chicken? Where's the potato salad? We don't know beans. This is not Mexican night. This is Black cookout. And it became this really deep discussion where there was a lot of ignorance around the ideology that there are Black people who are Hispanic, who are Latin American. And so this conundrum, this conversation was really about culture. Someone was fully Black, but their customs, arts, and social institutions were connected with a different ethnic space than the US Black experience. And because of that, there was a tension that came, because you cannot, it's problematic to group us all together, which is also sometimes called a monolith. Which sets us up for ethnicity. Ethnicity is the quality or fact of belonging to a population group or subgroup made up of people who share a common cultural background or descent. So when we talk about your ethnicity, we are not talking about the physical manifestation of your traits. We are talking about the land you were birthed on, and the grouping of people being born on that same land. And when we say land, we say that that land causes a certain genetic makeup for your survival. So if I was born in a very hot climate, the individuals have very dark skin, for instance. They tend to have very coarse hair to protect your scalp from the sun. These sorts of things. Your ethnicity is that group of people you belong to, but you must know the land in which you belong to. So when you're trying to figure out your ethnicity, you're trying to figure out the land. When you're trying to figure out your culture, you're trying to figure out the traditions that are usually carried out by people on that land. When you're talking about your social identity, we're talking about how the people on that land, the people, the traditions done on that land, how they look on you.
That's such a good point. Can you just break that down one more time for the people in the back? So ethnicity is for the people on the land.
Correct.
Culture is the land.
No. Ethnicity is so ethnicity is the people on the land. The culture are the traditions that you do on the land. And the social grouping is what the people on the land and the traditions they do, how they look on you.
So social grouping, can you just rephrase that?
Or social identity, I'm sorry, social identity, not social grouping.
Social identity, just repeat that last one for me one more time. I'm taking notes, so for those that are watching, you should be taking notes because this is good. Like, I'm enjoying myself with this lesson. I'm just like, oh, girl, hold on, let me take my notes. So social identity, one more last time, sorry, Fran.
Yeah, no problem. Social identity is how the people on the land and the traditions done on the land look on you. So the physical manifestation of that on you.
So since we repeated this so many times, welcome to question number 2, where you are to define how ethnicity, culture, and social identity reflects on the particular land. So ethnicity is the people on the land, culture is the traditions that you do on the land, and social identity is how the people on the land look on you. So please define ethnicity, culture, and social identity in relations to the land. We went over this, we repeated it, you can rewind, so no need to belabor this. Go ahead, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, so now we get to race, which I want to start off with a preface, a heads up that race is a made up construct by white-bodied individuals to justify a robbing, pillaging, murdering, raping of the people on the land, okay? It's a made up construct used to push forward a capitalistic, so a money-hungry agenda to justify the robbing, the pillaging, the raping, the violating experiences of the ethnic group on the land on which it wanted to take over. But this race definition is a very simple one found on this slide, and it's a category of humankind that shares a certain distinctive physical trait. And the reality is that social identity is really what race is. But unfortunately, the weight of the color of our skin, it says certain distinctive physical traits, but it's really the color of our skin and the traits that go with the color of our skin. Because you could be white-bodied with a big nose, and you're still going to get the experience of a white body individual because society is going to see you as white. You could be white body with a big booty. And because of the social identity factor, or what race really is, people are still going to see you as a white person with a big booty. So we try to give a made up construct, a definition, and it really is no logic to it. So remember that when you might hear people say, there's only one race, the human race, that isn't actually, that's not actually an inaccurate, I just did a double negative. That's an accurate definition of race, that we are humans. So that's race. But race has been, unfortunately, for the better good of white bodies who are trying to colonize, has been used to separate solely by a color on your skin. Now let's talk about intersectionality. We have talked very gorgeously about the different components of social identity, culture, ethnicity, and then we went over race. And now we need to talk about how those intersect together. When you're trying to figure out who you are, make sure you understand that I am asking you to do the work of intersectionality, which is the complex, cumulative way our social identities combine, overlap, or intersect. It's our context. Okay. Kimberly Crenshaw is the one who created intersectionality, and it's a lens through which you can see which power comes and collides, where it interlocks and intersects. It's not simply that there's a race problem here, a gender problem there, and a class or LGBTQIA to S+ problem there. Many times that framework erases what happens to people who are subject to all of these things. So the reality is that me being a woman I can't separate me being a woman from me being a Black-bodied woman. I can't separate me being a neurodivergent Black-bodied woman. I can't separate me being a neurodivergent Black-bodied woman who was raised a Christian. So my culture is very Christian culture. I can't separate my being a Black-bodied woman who was raised in Christian culture and who is in a heteronormative or cisgendered relationship. So I can't separate these things. All of these things weigh in on how society sees me and the experiences I have. Remember, social identity is how others see you. It's not you discovering who you are. You must do a lot more work on things that no one has access to, the metaphysical things going on inside of you, in order to know who you are. So the world will try to tell you, you just need to know how the world sees you and you'll be okay. But we have many people dying on a regular basis because they have it on lock how the world sees them, but they inside are dying because they don't know themselves. And so I'm going to issue a question that I typically issue when I'm doing this live, and that is this. What is an example of an experience that might be able to show something one way, but be experiencing another? What is an example of an experience a human being can have, a group they can belong to, where to the world they present one way, but have something completely different going on inside? The other piece that I want to give you is that we have arrived to the point of our secret phrase. So if you've been listening thus far, congratulations. And the secret phrase this session is: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And it's from Maya Angelou. So let's continue on. I suggest that you pause if you needed more notes, if you needed to understand, because this next piece will be confusing to you if there are still pieces that are missing for you, because we're about to go into the act of cultural mapping. And cultural mapping can simply be broken down as, how do we discover who we are?
Girl, this is some good stuff. I was going to say for the third question, which is, what is an example of an experience a human being could have to the world they present one way, but have something completely going on inside? That's correct, right? All right, cool. So I remember I was in college and it was like a Black people meet sort of situation, like, just beautiful Black people all throughout the diaspora getting together, kikiing and whatnot. And we're just all talking about our Black experience. And then someone just starts crying. And we're just like, girl, what's going on? Why are you crying? And she was like, you guys, you don't realize I'm not Black, I'm Dominican. And we were like, girl. We were like, girl, you Blacker than me. Okay, girl, we're gonna let you have some autonomy and say you Black and not Dominican. You Dominican, you're not Black, but deep down inside of her, when she hears Blackness, she hears African American experience. She hears like I'm this particular category and I'm being in my erasure in my Latina-ness and my Dominican and my culture and everything is being erased because you want to identify me by the color of my skin, when there's culture attached to it, there's an ethnicity attached to it. So though we can break down and have a deeper conversation and understand her, I just thought it was funny for giggles of just how Mama was in tears and it was just like, now girl.
You know good and well that ain't what this is. You're right. So she is, when she thinks of Blackness, she thinks of culture.
Yeah.
And she thinks of, because it can't be ethnicity, right? Because there's Black people, Black-skinned people on every land. And there are a lot of Black-skinned people in the Dominican Republic.
All throughout the Dominican Republic, all throughout, like, listen, you can find us everywhere. So yeah,
when
the African
she's
diaspora is very
saying,
real.
When she's saying, I'm not Black, I'm Dominican, she's saying, I don't do anything with the music, the traditions, the holidays. I don't relate to any of that expression that tends to be associated with Blackness. And I think that's okay. But then we need to raise our awareness that there will always be a social identity we cannot get from. And your share was an excellent tie-in for a review. Social identity is not how you define yourself, but how society defines you. So you don't get the choice, boo, to not define as Black if your skin is Black, because society is going to always define you as Black. Let me give an example of my own personal experience. I'm a Black-skinned Native woman. But when I tell you my identity, I'm Black. And so why? Because I will only be seen as a Black woman. I do not have the luxury of my Native identity that's inside of me. And I feel a connection to the ethnicity of Native culture. I do feel a connectedness to that, but that does not show in my physical manifestation. So socially, I'm not allowed to experience that. Do I think that's right? No, please don't hear that. I'm trying to educate you to understand that that is reality, and that reality, being empowered to know that, to understand that, gives you greater tools to discover who you are, because you can understand society's going to always see me this way. Now, this is how I'm going to choose to see myself. And a person that's empowered with autonomy, as you put it earlier, is a very powerful person. And so we are trying to get you to be a powerful person. We're not trying to control you. We're not trying to tell you you have to believe you're one way or another. But this is also why it's absolutely ridiculous when someone is raised in a Black space and they are white-skinned and they want to claim Blackness. You will never be allowed the social identity of Blackness. You will never experience the consequences of the social identity of Blackness. Thus, doesn't matter if you internally, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, intellectually connect most with Black culture. It doesn't matter, because social identity will never allow you to be Black.
This is so good. It makes me think of two situations, and I think it falls into autonomy. And before this presentation, I would have said assimilation, where you have, I have a friend per se that like is Black and Indigenous, and she was really connected to like the Black community and everything. And then in college, she started like getting more into her Indigenous roots, started going to the powwow, started exploring her family and everything. And you saw a bit of I want to say a change in her, where she has curly, thick hair, and she started straightening it when she would go to the powwows. To I can't say that she's trying to fit in or anything. I can just say that she started straightening her hair, and she tried to started doing the different customs, the outfits, the two braids, like with her tribe, and that's what they would wear and do, and that's what she did. And then I would also find in college, when I was in college, like the biracial kids that grew up in like different wealthy communities, and they're biracial, and they're just like never been around Black people before, and all of a sudden there's freshman year they're talking one way, sophomore year there's like a change, there's oh, okay, using more slang this year. All right, you picked up on things or two. What do you call? I know we said you should have autonomy in your actual identity, because that's who you are. It's not like they're pretending, or they're blackfacing, or pretending to pick up a culture that's not theirs. But there's a shift, I want to call it. So what do you say to that? Is it their autonomy? Is it them assimilating? Is it I just find it intriguing. So I'm curious. And if we have to edit this out, we can edit this part out, but I'm just curious.
So, well, you get to decide that, friend. I'll let you decide that, because this is your program that you're leading. But so assimilation is a survival tactic done by individuals who majority of their identity markers can be defined as subordinated. And these survival tactics are so that the social identity consequences are reduced or more easily managed. So let's make sure we understand that. I do not define that in this course, but I think that's a good piece to bring up, and I might add it in the future just because it was an excellent ad to bring up. But assimilation is that. So when we are talking about an individual, when we're noticing an individual trying to belong, one of the reasons you might hear people saying, we just all need to belong, and belongingness is what matters, and we want everybody to belong. And there are some DEIA, JB, so justice and belonging, the B stands for belonging, practitioners who do ascribe to the ideology of belongingness. And the reason is because of W.E.B. Du Bois' definitive term called double consciousness, which is specific to Black bodies, where our identity, our social identity, is only validated through the eyes of another person. So we have to always live a double consciousness where we don't get to identify who we are inside. We always have to think about who we are in the eyes of someone else to survive. So you will never see me tell someone they've assimilated, even though I know the definitive term of assimilation. I will maybe define my own, but I will never project that on someone. And you will never see me shame someone for assimilating. Not saying that you were doing that, so please let me get that clear if anybody's listening. I'm not shaming him for saying that. I'm articulating that we should all maybe try to be better human beings and understand that your social identity definitive, how people see you, is literally one of the biggest factors as to why you are even in our space or in crisis. Most crises has to do with how people see you, has nothing to do with what's going on inside of you. It's one of the reasons why we get money with Launch Ministries to serve you, because you didn't do anything wrong to end up with the social identity markers that you have. There wasn't something innately wrong with you inside that made you deserve the experiences you're having. So this individual straightening their hair when they had curly hair, wanting to combine with the traditions, to me, it's they wanted to be seen and belong amongst that community. And they knew that their Blackness, whether they knew it consciously, their body knew it subconsciously, that their Blackness would always make them, would always overpower any internal work they were doing to relate to the Native heritage. So they decided to straighten their hair, and yes. Or when someone is mixed race and they're talking white the whole time, and then all of a sudden they get around a school like HBCU and they a light-skinned brother, and all of a sudden now they talking Black and conscious, and they're speaking and quoting Black authors. That means that there was an internal work that's done. They didn't change the social identity definition, but there's an internal work done, and they've decided to purposely try to put out expression, because remember, only you can express that, of that internal work, to try to add to that social identity definition that they receive.
This is so good. I'm really enjoying myself. This is so great. If anything, this talk was for me. I got something out of it. Where's my $20? This was so good. This is so good. But please continue on. And oh my gosh, I'm loving it.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. We don't have time to watch this video because I want to wrap up and make sure we're timely enough. But I do want to say that this video is just a quick video that you'll get the link to watch on your own, or you can also see that it says Diversity and Enneagram, Meet Your New BIPOC Educators. You can go ahead and look that up on YouTube and it comes up. But the big piece is when you take the course with Corey, our executive director, he really talks about Enneagram, which is a personality assessment. And this piece is really highlighting, it's a really short video that's highlighting how the Enneagram is, in all personality assessments, are geared towards defining and identifying social identity markers that are in the dominant space. And so she's trying to shift that by having you not look to her as a white Enneagram expert, but to look at Black-bodied individuals, brown-bodied individuals, and have you engage them so that even though they're using this personality assessment that's geared towards white dominance, their take on it, their experiences, can make it more internally relatable to you, like our excellent conversation we were just having. So, what are identity factors, identity ingredients? We've talked about this. Neff asked some questions where I was like, oh, you're kind of skipping ahead, but I'm going to definitely be talking about that. So let's talk about it. If you have listed your social groupings and then your identity factors, and then decided if they're dominant or subordinated, you must have included gender. Even if you are non-conforming, that needs to be stated. Why? Because your social identity definition will include it. Now, in gender, the dominant definition or identity factor is male, men. Race, that's just simply, remember, the color of your skin. So if you are white-bodied, that means your skin, the body, the largest organ on your body, if it is a hue that is of pink or what we call white, then that is a dominant trait. Doesn't matter if that skin has blemishes, or doesn't matter if you don't care for that skin, doesn't matter if it's got stretch marks. We're talking about race, and that is just the color of the skin. Then ethnicity, remember, ethnicity is the group, the people in which the land and the land they were birthed on. So you want to think about this. I articulated to you that I'm a Black native. That means that a large portion of my family's history were born on this land, right here. A group of my history, we did not come from Africa. Now, there was another portion of my family DNA where we did come from Africa. And that experience, that expression is what makes up my ethnicity. So I need to know the land. Do you know the land in which the people, your ancestors, were birthed on, that made up you and your physical manifestation? Next is your ability status. So what are you able to do with your body? Remember, social identity definitives or factors are solely based on what society can see on you. So are you able to walk? Are you able to independently dress? Can you see? Can you hear? If you can't hear, do you have a visible ability support, ability tool, hearing tool? Able-bodied means that you can do all the normal functions of your body, with your body, and it is physically apparent you can. Class represents your economic status. So were you raised in a wealthy household where where in the home someone had excessive money, so they had more than enough money to survive? Middle class usually defines that your family have what they need, but people had to work. And lower class means it didn't matter what you do, you never had what you exactly needed, but you survived. You never had enough. You always were needing more, and it never was quite fulfilled. So we're going to talk about upper, middle, and lower class. Make sure that was included in your identity. Then we're going to talk about religion and spirituality. And when we talk about the West, the dominant trait of that is Christianity. That's not necessarily the case on every continent, but majority continents, Christianity is the dominant spiritual and religious expression. And then it's not only Christianity, but it's the European ethnic expression of Christianity that is dominant. And I apologize for class. I forgot to tell you that upper class, thought that was self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure I'm clear and consistent, is the dominant one. So religion and spirituality is how you get access to what's going on inside of you that no one has to do with, but there's a really religious and spirituality where people feel you invite your social identity, your societal definers into being able to tell you if they can see you are operating in the tradition and the cultural norms associated with that religious and spiritual expression. There are very few religions and spirituality that it can be done without needing that social identity definition. So keep that in mind. We were talking about gender earlier, and sometimes people in error make gender and sexuality synonymous, and they are not. And while we don't typically have people out here in these streets just having sex, where you can know what gets them excited, we all grown here, so I can say the word sex, I'm assuming. Sexuality is how you express yourself to attract the kind of people you're attracted to. So what do you do? How do you express your sexuality? So there are individuals who enjoy same sex, but in a social definition, they don't look like they enjoy the same sex. And so they are often being projected on, or society is often defining them as heteronormative, which just means it's normal to be attracted to the opposite sex. Then there's age, and the dominant age is between 27 and 47. When you are young, you have certain rights that you have to get through someone else. When you're old, you have certain rights you have to get through someone else. And there is often ageism attached to those experiences. But between that really sweet spot age, you are able to be an expert if you'd like. People trust your knowledge. They believe you have enough experiences. And typically in those age ranges, you look youthful or attractive or young enough or old enough. There is no typical in this definition, but I do want to mention that. I am going way slower than I had intended, so let me kind of go through this. Education, do you have a degree? Mental health, do you have do you have a healthy working brain? Are you experiencing a biochemical issue with depression or anxiety? Does that show to society to define you as sad or crazy or angry? Neurodiversity is your ability to see the world differently. What it does, how society defines you is you see the world differently, and you have nothing you can do about that because you see the world differently. You are neurodivergent. And so the way that you express yourself is different enough for society to define you as something wrong with you. Example, autism, ADHD. These are not mental illnesses. This is neurodivergence, where ADHD brains, they can process things very, very fast and easily get overwhelmed as they're processing things very, very fast. So their expression is going through things very, very quickly, and that's not normal. So the social definer will say, you're not normal because you're defining it too fast. And then they will try to tell you that, those pieces. And then let's end on this, where we talk about beauty. So how is your body able to express beauty? How is it able to align with the norms or what society defines as beauty? Your nation of origin. So it's very similar to ethnicity, but there is some increased attachments to you being from certain countries. For instance, if you're from Iraq or Afghanistan, and individuals, or Egypt. And so us defining that nation as a terrorist nation can be very dangerous if you came over here. Obviously, the dominant would be being from the US. Obviously, the beauty would be having white beauty standards, white, slick, straight hair, or bouncy, beautiful, straight hair, blonde, blue eyes, the Aryan race supremacy ideology. And then language. Language is the English language that we use to, that is a dominant language. And any other language, if it's European, it's acceptable. If it's not European, it is not acceptable. And we see that a lot. People will speak French, they'll speak Spanish, but we can't have tribal languages. Those were disposed of, and many people don't have connection to it. So this gets us to our questions portion of the video, and the portion that I'm gonna let you go. This was really, really fun for me. You all know how to get a hold of me if there are questions you want to answer outside of the survey. In addition, I think the dialogue is fantastic and we can keep it going. Here at Launch Ministry, we are your resource. We are your allies, and we love being allowed to do so with you. And so please see us as a wealth of knowledge to engage with. Every one of the staff members has a different experience with this kind of information. And so if you brought up any of your questions to any of them, I'm sure they would give you an interesting take. And we're all trained to be able to express that in a way that empowers you to be a powerfully autonomous individual. So we promise to never project on you that you must be one way or another in order to exist. And that'll be my end.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for this amazing lesson. I think you did what needed to be done. This was an intriguing course, and this is going to be our ongoing recording that we will use for launch. So I don't know how long they will use this recording, but this will be the recording that is used. So I hope you have a wonderful day, whatever time of day it is for y'all, and y'all take care. Bye now.
Bye.